domain for each of the following functions. Okay, the first one, so we want to look at the denominator. What's going on in the denominator? Because the one thing that we don't want the denominator to be is 0. So we need to figure out what would make this denominator 0. So since it's a quadratic, let's factor this and then figure out what x values make it 0. So x, if I factor the 8, negative 8, so we're going to get negative 4 times 2, because that adds up to negative 2. Okay, and we want to figure out what will make this equal to 0, because that's what we don't want. So x minus 4 equals 0. So that's x equals 4. And x plus 2 equals 0. So that's x equals negative 2. So those are the two things we don't want. So our domain is going to be all x's such that x is not equal to 4 and x is not equal to negative 2. Okay, and number 3, again, we do not want the denominator to be 0, but we have one additional thing, because we have a square root and we want our domain, we're looking for real solutions. We do not want negatives under the square root. So what we want to have is x minus 2 be greater than 0. That takes care of the negative, and it takes care of the 0 on the denominator. So just solve that. So add 2 to both sides. So we want x to be greater than 2. So our domain for the second one is all such x's that x is greater than 2. Okay, so in problem 6, we want to find the inverse of this function. So remember, we need to first write it in y equals form. So change the x and the y, so just switch them. Now we're going to isolate the y. We want to just have it by itself. So the first thing we need to do is add 1 to both sides. So now we're going to divide by 2. So we have x plus 1 over 2 equals y cubed. And now to get just to the y, we need to take the cube root of both sides. And that's equal to the inverse. So we're finished.